It is the end of day 2 of Pro Tour San Diego. 413 begin, 405 are gone, 8 remain. 8 is quite an important number at this Pro Tour. Yesterday, 2 superstars of the game went 8-0. Gabriel Nassif of France, Luis Scott-Vargas of the United States. Today, one of those 2 superstars went 8-0 again. Let's take a look on our board at the road to perfection. Here it is, Luis Scott-Vargas of the United States. BDM, take it away.
Well, let's just talk for a second about the accomplishment Luis Scott-Vargas pulled off in this event. Never before in the history of the Pro Tour has a player gone through the Swiss rounds and won 16 straight matches. They'd never even won 15 straight matches in the Swiss rounds of a single event. The previous record was held by Ryan Fuller in 2001 in Tokyo when he went 14-0. He made a quick exit in the quarterfinals. Luis Scott-Vargas is hoping that he will not have a repeat of that here, but he went 16-0. He swept standard, swept a draft, and then when he just needed one win and then could have lost his way into the top 8, he swept standard again. Unbelievable. And look at some of the names that he faced. He had to play against Alan Comer, Godanis Vidagiris, Dan Gardner, Craig Wesco, who's in our top 8, Gabriel Nassif, and a clash of the Titans in round 9. Unbelievable. Jeroen Canis, who's in our top 8. Daniel Grafensteiner, who's in our top 8. Heartbreaker for Dan Gardner. Dan Gardner had to play him again. Imagine this. You're young Danny Gardner. You're in the tournament. You've lost 3 matches with 2 rounds to go, and 2 of those losses are to Luis Scott-Vargas. I mean, kudos to Dan on an amazing tournament. I just wanted to take a moment to really single his performance out.
And heartbreak for Bertil Elfgren, the Swede. You play in the last round. Your opponent, LSV, he's in approximately 5 hours earlier. He decides to play, annihilates Elfgren. He was never in that match, and he ends up outside the top 8. But this is a record by definition that will never be beaten. But to do it in mixed formats, 6 rounds of draft, 10 rounds of standard, absolutely astonishing magic.
And while most players are just worried about making a top 8, to have an eye towards history, there was a point in the middle of this pod where Luis Scott-Vargas is like, I think I want to go 16-0. I think I want to do that. To have that eye towards history and to be able to put, all the pressure to draw with people and to, concede to a friend and all that kind of stuff to get other people into the top 8. To put that aside with that eye on history is just amazing to me, and really a tribute to Luis's amazing fortitude as a Magic player to just go straight through.
We have talked a lot about one man, but in the top 8, there are 7 others. Let's meet them up on our board. Here is the top 8, as it will be. Luis Scott-Vargas of the United States, 48 points. That is 11 points more than the next place guy. Bear in mind, he could have stayed in bed for the whole first draft and still ended up 2 points clear of the field. Mind you, he'd have been disqualified if he'd tried that. Daniel Grafensteiner of Germany in second. A really inexperienced top 8 BDM up against the man. Take us through some of them.
Sure. Sweeping the Swiss doesn't mean anything if Luis Scott-Vargas cannot beat some combination of these 7 guys.
And first up, he will face, right down here, number 8 seed, Jeroen Canis. What's the matchup?
So the matchup there is Boss Naya. We did a deck tech with Tom Ross, the designer of the deck, earlier in the day. You can go check that out. Really innovative Naya deck that brings in Basilisk Collar, Cunning Spark Mage out of the sideboard against creature decks. He's going to be playing mono red. I don't know. This is a tough matchup for Luis. It is not your traditional green-based creature deck.
Now, Jeroen Canis, he has a phenomenal story as well. For a start, he's playing mono red. We'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow. But in the last round of Swiss, he faced Gabriel Nassif. The winner would be in. The deciding game, Canis gets Nassif to 3. He has no cards left. Nassif taps out for Baneslayer Angel. It's this simple. If Canis does not draw burn off the top, Nassif will take Baneslayer Angel to victory and will make his 10th Pro Tour top 8. Canis draws Lightning Bolt. It's a Craig Jones moment all over that again. Nassif was out of his chair like he had been lightning bolted. It was a truly electrifying moment. Nassif out, Canis in. Phenomenal. 2v7, Grafensteiner plays Craig Wesco. What's the matchup there?
So Daniel Grafensteiner is playing a deck that we generally call junk. It's a green-white deck that's going to splash black for removal. We've got Baneslayer Angels, we've got Emiria Angels, we've got Lotus Cobras, we've got Knight of the Reliquary, we have Maelstrom Pulse. It's a pretty straightforward deck. Daniel played it well all weekend. He'll be facing off against Craig Wesco. Craig is a Pro Tour veteran. We did a deck tech with him on his Tricked Out White Weenie deck. You can take a look at what he did there. Again, this is a Stoneforge Mystic, Trusty Machete, Sigil of Distinction, and of course the ubiquitous Basilisk Collar that we've been talking about all weekend.
Now, talking of ubiquitous, let's look at 3v6. Kyle Bugamers of the United States up against our sole Japanese player. You'd have got quite good odds on that happening, Yoshihiko Ikawa, and both of those are running Jund. You remember Jund? You know, black, red, green, best deck in standard? Yeah, they're playing that.
Sure, it was about a third of the field here today.
That's right, yeah.
Well represented in the top 8. It is also the deck of choice of Simon Gortzen of Germany.
Yep.
We got a couple of Germans, by the way, in this top 8. Germany's been putting up some really good numbers of late. We saw that at Worlds. We see that here.
Yep.
Simon Gortzen's going to be playing against what's going to be, I think, the darling deck of this top 8. Niels Vienne is playing Open the Vaults Esper.
Yep.
It is not a time sieve deck. It's just it's a deck that resets the board with Open the Vaults. It cycles a lot of artifact creatures, and it looked like a blast to play. He had crowds around him every time he was playing a match. It'd be very interesting to see how that match plays out.
And Niels Vienne, by the way, playing in his first Pro Tour. So while LSV is making history in the game, Vienne making his own little slice of history on debut. We've seen people like Jan Moritz Merkel win the Pro Tour on debut. He is 3 matches away from his slice of history. You can join us for History in the Making in the Pro Tour webcast tomorrow morning, 10:45 Pacific time. That's 1:45 p.m. in New York City, 6:45 in the evening in London, 3:45 in the morning in Tokyo, Japan on Monday. Wherever you are around the world, do not miss a thing. History is coming right at you. But for now, from the Swiss rounds, for Brian David Marshall, I'm your host, Richard Hagon, saying bye.